Hello YouTube, I'm SlyElessar, street photographer, musician, whatever. I'd like to speak to you today about the Zuiko 50mm 1.4 lens, and I'll be doing a brief comparison against its little brother, the 1.8, which is just a tad smaller, just a tad, tiny bit smaller. I will be comparing this with 35mm film and on digital. So I know we've got a lot of people that like to buy older lenses and use them on digital cameras. Blasphemy! So without further ado, on 35mm cameras, on 35mm film, this is a very nice lens. So I've used this Tri-X, HP5, XP2 even. XP2 is quite cool. So it performs really well in low light. It renders really well on 35mm film, and I will stick a picture up. Okay, so so the first picture will be from a trip I did when it snowed in Carshalton with a friend, and I'll stick another one up. So again, same shoot session. The 50mm 1.4 really suited this environment. That will be F5.6 because of the lighting, because of the snow. And I think it worked really well with the XP2 on that particular day. On digital sensors, this is one of the weaker points, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was not happy with it on digital sensor. I wasn't that impressed. In fact, whether I would say this is a very good lens for film, I would say this is a average, mediocre lens for digital. And that's both on XP2 and on my Nikon. So I use various different adapters to adapt lenses, and I've had some fantastic results adapting lenses to the X-T1, and I highly recommend using an X-T1 for street photography. So on digital, I wasn't that impressed. The colours weren't fantastic. If I'm being perfectly honest, it didn't render the colours very well. I'm so used to shooting black and white film with the 50mm F1.4 Zuiko that I just couldn't comprehend why. I was like, hold on a minute, maybe it's my settings on the camera, maybe it's just the lighting in the day, but no, it's all normal. It's the kind of stuff I'd normally shoot. So what was the problem? It clearly didn't work well with digital sensors. The F1.8 does work a little bit better, does come out a little bit nicer. They will both give you the equivalent of 75mm on an APS-C camera, if you're adapting them. So this includes the X-T1 that I'm filming this video with right now. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I quite like the fact that it becomes more of a portrait lens, and you can still get away with things like that. Because I also have the I've got a Yashica 50mm f1.4 that just looks fantastic on digital lenses, and that was a random purchase up north. So don't be put off on getting these older glass, but definitely do your research. So back to film. I'm going to stick some photos. I'm going to stick some photos at the end. So I'm going to stick some photographs at the end. And I'll do both 35mm film, and I'll throw in a couple of digitals just for the lads. Just for the sake of it, because I know a lot of people are going to be looking at this for digital. But I don't want people to be put off by looking at old glass for the sake of using on digital sensors, just because it does work really well and it is a lot cheaper, and I'm all up for that, and there's nothing wrong with buying secondhand gear and using it. So yes, the pros for this lens on 35mm film, it's very good at low light. The bokeh, the out of focus areas at f1.4, I'll get it right eventually. So the out of focus areas, the bokeh, f1.4, looks good, looks great on 35mm film. Has its own flavour, but a lot of people like that. It's a very popular lens. It starts to get sharpest around f4, f5.6 further out, but there is noticeable distortion, especially from f1.4 to, well, yeah, to f1.4 to f4, around that region. It's lightweight. It doesn't weigh very much at all, doesn't protrude out. So this is my 135mm on my OM2, and as you can tell, it's a lot smaller. So it's a nice little carry around lens, nice little carry around camera. I do recommend them for street photography. The old OMs, you're working in, if you're new to figuring out exposure triangle, the OM2, because I predominantly use an OM1, but I do use an OM2, it is my backup. It does have an auto mode, so you don't have to do all three things. Well, two, because your ASA is set by the film. Remember, it's so bad I can't actually remember whether it's shutter speed or aperture you set. It's probably aperture, but I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments below. If you're just getting into street photography and you're doing film, and you want something simple, something easy, you just want to compose and you want to point and shoot, I do recommend an Olympus Trip 35. I actually have one here. This is a fantastic camera. Selenium cells, so for the light meter, it's all inbuilt. You just wind it on, you point, you shoot, and it does everything else for you. Just set the distance, so sort of zone focusing. So it's got one person, two people, three people on a mountain. So it's sort of, I think it's 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, and then f16. I'm presuming. Never assume. Never assume. So, and on the bottom of it, you actually have meters, feet, etc. So you can do in between. So, yes, back to the point. The cons for this lens, it's not fantastic on digital sensors, especially APS-C digital sensors. I've never tried it on full frame, I'm being honest. Apart from film cameras, I haven't tried full frame digital yet, because I don't have a Sony at this point in time. I doubt I have a Sony anyway. And the Sony fanboys are going nuts. So yeah, so another con for this lens is the bokeh has its own flavour. It's not horrible, but it did catch me off guard. And I will put, I actually got some colour film actually. I actually used some portrait, so I will stick 2 portrait pictures at the end. One of them looks really nice, it came out really well. The other one, F1.4, I was focusing on some sort of tree stump. It looks horrible, and it really was a test shot for F1.4, because I wanted to see what it looked like when it came out on film. Just sort of a test shot, and I wasn't impressed by that, if I'm being perfectly honest. And yet in black and white it looks fantastic, and I predominantly shoot black and white, but you don't have to shoot it in black and white. My point being, it looks nicer in black and white than it does on colour film at f1.4. f4 upwards looks fantastic on colour or black and white film. Anyway, I'm rambling on quite a bit. So yeah, if you're looking for a 50mm Zuiko lens, or you're just generally looking at the Zuiko lenses, and you come across the f1.4, I go for the 1.8. It's cheaper. It ranges between £10 and say 30 quid online. Even in some of the shops, I go into a lot of the vintage cameras and the second-hand shops, and it's quite cheap in there. The f1.4, anything between £70 and £130, and the equivalent therein. So yes, I will stick some photos up at the end. Have a good one.